Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. Business users have spoken, remove the bottlenecks from our daily operations. And this is part one in a series of webinars we're going to have on this topic. And today we're going to be focusing on data extraction and intelligent capture. I'm Teresa Resick, the Director of Webinars here at AIIM, and AIIM is your host and producer of today's event. And joining me are Richard Medina of Doculabs and David Jenness of IBM. IBM is the underwriter of today's webinar, and we thank them very much for support. And thank you, everyone, for taking the time to join us today. Just want to offer a few pointers for participating in today's webinar. Because you're joining live, you can resize the different windows that you have in front of you. And feel free to open up the group chat so that you can message with each other and also with a few of us from here at AIIM. Download the resources. There's some cool links over there. And do ask questions of the speakers with the Q&A feature, and we'll do our best to get to them later in our webcast. We have about 5 to 10 minutes set aside for taking questions. And there's also a feedback survey that I have, and I truly value your feedback and would appreciate it if you would offer that, and it will open at the end of the event. This webinar is being recorded, and I will get that replay posted to AIM.org's resources webinars page in a few days. But also know that we are going to be seeing a bit of a demo a little bit later in the webcast, and that little window in your lower left will open up so that you'll be able to see the webcast or to see that demo and the screen share that we'll be doing. And we'll just get you through toggling back between seeing the demo and getting back to the slides. But we have a really cool demo coming up, and I'm really looking forward to seeing that. Okay. And to introduce the speakers that we have with us today. Richard Medina is co-founder of Doculabs, and he's their resident expert in information lifecycle management with knowledge of records management from all perspectives, from people, process, and technology, as well as an understanding of best practices and how they apply within the real-world setting of organizations. And with more than 22 years with Doculabs, Rich has worked with clients in many industries, evaluating the required management capabilities for their electronically stored information and providing recommendations to improve their discovery readiness and overall management of unstructured content. And we also have with us David Jenness, and he is a writer and public speaker who specializes in communicating the benefits of new technologies to business decision makers. At IBM, David develops the messaging strategy, writes executive speeches and videos, and produces the IBM Live events. And prior to 2010, David performed a similar role with capture pioneer DataCap for 12 years. So right now, I'm going to turn things over to Rich Medina to begin our talk today. Rich?
Thanks, Teresa, and thanks, David, for this opportunity. Teresa and David, if I'm going too fast or too slow or garbling my words, please heckle. Today, I'm going to talk about data extraction and intelligent capture as part of your organization's digital transformation evolution. Now, the specific capabilities that we're addressing, extraction, classification, validation, and so on, include multi-channel, multi-format document capture, and then using automation technology for classifying the documents that come in, extracting the relevant data from those documents, and then validating and doing QA, checking that the documents are complete and correct, and maybe correcting any errors as well. Okay, so those capabilities were desired capabilities 20 years ago. And this talk would be very different if the new document automation capabilities that are now available with the advent of civilized artificial intelligence and machine learning and so on, if those capabilities came out 10 years ago before organizations began really trying to plan and execute digital transformation. But today, when you think about how to improve your capture operations, you've got to align your strategy with the digital transformation movement. So at a minimum, you've got to weigh how many of your chips you should place on fixing inefficient paper processes versus leapfrogging them and significantly reducing or eliminating paper from the process entirely. You also probably have the situation where your organizations have not given, say, document capture top priority. though they are prioritizing so-called digital transformation. So you have to plan a way to insert document capture, document automation into the digital transformation strategy. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to talk about how to fit document automation into your organization's digital transformation strategy, and if you have one. If you don't have one, then I'm going to give some, I hope, good advice as to how to get rolling with one. And I'm going to start first by talking about abstractly about digital transformation, but then I'll get very specific about data extraction and classification and so on. So please stick around if you're impatient for the extraction stuff. I'll get there in just a few minutes. Now, when organizations plan for digital transformation, they're typically planning for one or more of these three future states. I put them in a pyramid because the higher ones are more complex and depend on the earlier ones. Now, first, they may want to digitize their current interactions and processes, which means automating them and providing a human-centric digital experience. This is what most of us are doing in our organizations, using document automation to improve ingestion and downstream processes like accounts payable or loan applications or claims processing and so on. So doc automation obviously fits here like a glove. The challenge is that most organizations undervalue this foundational level when they're thinking about digital transformation. They're thinking about levels 2 and 3. So levels 2 is the ability to enable, the tagline is be personal, proactive, and predictive initiatives like target marketing and applied intelligence. So they may want to use AI and advanced data analytics for fraud detection and insurance claims, or improve customer service by doing sentiment analysis on customer correspondence, which IBM does as part of one of their data extraction capabilities, interestingly enough. It's less obvious, but certainly doc automation fits in here too, because you have to extract good quality data to do analytics on it. And as I indicated, some emerging doc automation tools provide some advanced capabilities like sentiment analysis. Sentiment analysis is when, for example, you can look at a piece of correspondence and determine how angry the customer is. So you can expedite it and route it to the appropriate customer service agent and so on. Or level 3, they may want to provide new digital business models, new products and services that are competitively differentiated. This is the really exciting one. So what you're doing in this case is building something like a startup that challenges traditional approaches to, two examples, payments or lending. So an internal GoFundMe or OnDeck or Intuit Mint or whatever. Now, some of the doc automation capabilities that I'll be talking about are less relevant here because they pertain to fixing the problems with paper. But other capture capabilities are essential, like e-forms and digital signatures and mobile applications that bypass traditional ingestion and forms processing entirely. Now, as I suggested just a moment ago, many organizations should focus on, I believe, the level 1 first, because most of you still have paper processes, and many, though not all, of the capabilities and outputs for level 1 are necessary for level 2 and level 3. So when you start planning for improving your processes for document automation and digital transformation, whichever levels, 1, 2, or 3 you're targeting, there are 3 big decisions to make. And I'm going to use this picture or reference model of a financial services organization like a bank just as an example to make my points more specific. But I could use almost any type of big organization. Banks are good because they're complex with many autonomous business silos and layers. So they're a good source of problems, organizational problems that have to be addressed if you're going to go do good document automation in a digitally transformed organization. So what are the 3 issues to address? Well, first, your digital transformation initiative can either be centralized or vertical. It can be moderate or advanced and aggressive. And you can migrate from where you are today to where you want to be in various ways. And I'll explain all of those. But first, let's look at centralized versus vertical. This all has relevance to document automation, by the way. So centralized initiatives focus on an enterprise shared service provider or center of excellence. So many of you folks have one of these. It's a capture center, or it's a ECM center of excellence, something like that. It's a shared services group that governs or provides capture or enterprise content management, intelligence, information management to the enterprise. You may have an enterprise capture platform like IBM DataCap or similar within one of these organizations. Good. In centralized initiatives, you should focus on foundational technologies and program initiatives, like getting your capture operations solid and automated, and then onboard specific business areas or processes like wealth management, commercial banking within, say, a banking example, the one I have here. So the focus here, the approach here, is to get a capture platform that does everything from click to clunk, and then, if necessary, supplement it with specialist tools if you need to. For example, handwriting recognition and other areas, which the platform might be weak in, but overall can handle the volume that you need to provide to the various different business units. Okay? The second approach is vertical. So vertical projects focus on a specific business area or process, like in banks, it would be wealth management, or more specific areas like trust services or intergenerational wealth management. And they focus on technology and program initiatives specifically for that area or those processes, like enabling agents with a portal and electronic forms, or automating the back office settlements and claims processes with robots and case management and so on. So regarding best practices, if this is what you are going to pursue with intelligent capture and document automation, your governance model shouldn't be completely decentralized or completely centralized. The best practice today is to have a federated governance structure where the central COE, the central organization or team, provides guidance and platform capabilities, like capture platform capabilities, and the business areas, those things up at the top, the vertical bars, are franchises with local expertise and permission to do their own thing within some limits. When IBM is giving these talks about digital transformation and their technologies, these are areas where franchising in a federated model is most important. You have the various business units, the colonies, as it were, being innovative and addressing their needs with robots and case management and some doc automation and so on, but they're governed by a central team. And with respect to tool selection, best practice is to use self-service tools that require minimal coding and configuration, where business functions or business analysts can configure and manage the local tools. And I believe David will be talking about how IBM does some of this. Now, back to this model. I said that you're figuring out whether it be centralized in a shared services model or vertical, addressing a particular problem or process. Now you have to figure out how aggressive you're going to be. And your approach can be either moderate or advanced as you move into digital transformation. So moderate digital transformation focuses on that level 1 that you see in the pyramid. Advanced digital transformation focuses on level 2. Advanced digital transformation focuses on implementing digital-first technologies and processes such as analytics and so on. It may also include digitizing current processes, but this is a secondary focus. So let's dig into the specifics about what capture and doc automation capabilities are relevant for moderate versus advanced digital transformation. Okay. So I hope I'm speaking clearly enough. A moderate capture transformation that dramatically improves the efficiency of current processes, so many of which are paper-based today, or at some point the ingestion requires scanning paper and so on. Advanced capture transformation redesigns the processes to leapfrog those paper-based challenges. It cuts the Gordian knot by removing paper from the picture. So what you see here are the 12 kinds of capture capabilities and how they apply differently to moderate versus advanced transformation. And at the top level, you can see multi-channel. I'm sorry, I should say that I'm using 3 colors here to indicate for how important the various capabilities are. So green is very important. Light green is less important, of secondary importance, and that orange is tertiary. It's less important. And the 2 kinds of transformation projects are very different in what they prioritize. With moderate transformation, you should focus on multi-channel and format capture and go nuts on document automation. That's that middle row, particularly classification, extraction, and validation. You should also process management, task automation with RPAs, with robots, and process automation with case management, and advanced administration and reporting are secondary. And e-forms and e-sign and content analytics are tertiary. Those are more advanced capabilities. So let's move to advanced transformation capture. With advanced transformation capture, you should focus on digital first. So this means an enterprise focus on e-forms and e-signatures and automating tasks and processes and using analytics to enrich your data and make better, faster decisions. You know, shooting those angry customers to the appropriate customer reps based on the sentiments expressed in the correspondence. Administration reporting are very important and typically underappreciated because when you do advanced transformation capture, things are going to break and you likely don't have great models for what you do for business continuity when robots break and advanced extraction for handwriting breaks and so on. So you have to have lots of plan Bs for business continuity for this stuff. And again, as I said, the federated model governance approach works best the more advanced you get. And getting self-service tools into the decentralized business areas is the best approach as well. But let's get even more specific now and talk about the 3 core doc automation capabilities and where the best opportunities are. Okay. Now, I said that if you are doing moderate transformation for capture, you should focus on doc automation, which I say are primarily classification, extraction, and validation. And here specifically are the kinds of use cases you should consider, and the table shows whether they are easy, moderate, or difficult to automate using the current basket of tools that are available to you on the market. And you can grade your own organization, whether you've automated these things, where you get an A if you're doing some of the difficult tasks, B if you're handling most of the moderate ones, and a C if all you're doing is the easy tasks. F if you're not doing any of them. Most capture platforms can do the easy stuff. Some can do the moderate, and I'd say none can do all of the difficult stuff to make it worthwhile in production yet. You may want to supplement your platform with some new specialist engines if you have a business case to automate some of the difficult stuff. So let's take classification first. Classifying a page or a document first is often necessary for doing any effective extraction and validation. And you've got to understand what document it is, what page this is in order to get to the right field and understand how to interpret the marks on the page, what data they mean. Because in one document or page, they may mean something different than on another document or page. Now, classifying pages are easy. Classifying documents is often harder. And classifying packages are hardest. I don't know if you folks know what packages are. Working with document packages is one of the great innovations in capture in the last few years. A package is a collection of documents. Package is like a loan application that consists of 10 different documents. And you use case management capabilities in conjunction with these doc automation capabilities to collect the documents and classify them, and then later do QA on them, the whole document set, checking it for completeness and correctness and so on. In the olden days, even now, that kind of job would have to, all of that package validation would have to be moved downstream into the various lines of business. But today, at least the simple stuff of that package classification and validation can be done within the capture system. Okay, so now let's look at extraction. Barcodes and signatures and check marks are all easy. And English machine text in a structured, predictable layout is also easy. And your capture system should have no problem with this. But things get more difficult with unstructured or multilingual text. Now, some of the new batch of tools that are out there are very good at the really difficult stuff like handwriting, which I'll talk about in a moment. But they're limited to only be able to do it, say, on English documents or only on structured documents. And that brings us to the hard cases. Handprint and handwriting have always been a disaster for automated recognition, but now we're seeing tools that can address these rather well. And some systems can address multiple languages, And some, such as IBM, can do metadata enrichment like sentiment analysis. And then finally, let's look at validation and QA. Now, you can see the easy stuff there in the upper right-hand corner. It's easy to validate basic information about the docs, like document type and whether there are complete and correct fields in the docs and whether a signature is present and so on. And it's also easy to check for correctness with the source system, like checking with the customer information system or the claim system or the accounting system to see that information is, that name is correct, that address is correct, and so on. But things get a little bit harder if you're checking for consistency of the values within a document. That is, if I say that I'm giving my stuff to 3 beneficiaries, are those 3 beneficiaries consistent within the document? Or do I provide more or fewer beneficiaries or misspell them or whatever? And they're hardest if you're checking for, well, for example, the correctness of a signature, to see whether it's fraud or whether it really is Richard Medina's signature, or checking for the completeness and correctness of all the documents in a package, like a loan or a license application. Those are the most difficult. Now, for some, if not all of the moderate and difficult capabilities, the best practice is to see what your capture platform can provide, and then if there are gaps, consider supplementing it if it makes business sense. But you should also consider whether you can redesign the process to reduce some of the problems, like handprints or unstructured documents, or jump to advanced transformation capture and move to eForms, for example. Okay, I want to say one more thing about capabilities before I move on, particularly for advanced transformation for capture. I'm going to make a wild claim here. I made it earlier in the talk. For most of the organizations, enterprise content management, records management, capture, and related disciplines have not and are not at the top of the list of strategic priorities and budgeting. But as I said, digital transformation definitely is. So what I've tried to do here is to show how intelligent capture and document automation fits into your organization's likely digital transformation strategy, so you can plan, sell, and do intelligent capture and doc automation. Now, you should be able to understand, but certainly communicate, where capture fits into a digital transformation, IT architecture stack. And so that's what I've done here. This is, we use this as a standard digital transformation reference model. And it's primarily for IT departments who don't have capture on the brain. And so they don't know much about it necessarily, but they are doing digital transformation initiatives. And this is where advanced capture falls, into the buckets of user experience ingestion, information and process management, which is most of where the AIM disciplines, the AIM technologies fit in, like process management and information data management, classification and such, enrichment. And then AI machine learning is often over to the side, because it doesn't just, in organizations, it's not just addressing, capture, it's also addressing your data warehouses, your customer information systems, and so on. But this is a good thing to steal and use if you're trying to communicate to general IT and their digital transformation initiatives. Okay, and then finally, I promised I would talk about 3 things with respect to DT and digital transformation and where capture fits. The third question is, what migration approach should you take for digital transformation when you're doing moving from your current state of capture to the future state? We find it useful to think in terms of 5 different approaches. And we use the metaphor of house renovation, house construction, and so on. And the 2 first ones you can see are the most aggressive: new build, day forward, and raise and replace. And these are more suited to advanced transformation capture, with eForms and portals and robots and so on, where you don't have to deal with paper. The others are more suited for intelligent capture and doc automation, and a more moderate approach, where you're still getting a significant amount of paper. So let's look at outside in and inside out. Outside in renovation concerns where there's an existing process, and you focus on the user experience by addressing user capabilities rather than the underlying capabilities. So you provide mobile apps with a nice interface, but underneath the back office, when they want to submit an insurance claim or whatever, it's all hamsters, on wheels and so on. It's all manual. It's a mess. Inside out is the opposite. It concerns where there's an existing process, and you focus on their underlying platforms or core transactional business processes. So you focus first on what's underneath the covers and hidden and so on. So you're stomaching, delaying giving a great user experience, but underneath it's going to be rock solid. That's the plan at any rate. Now you might think that all the advances in capture in the last 20 years, such as multiple channels, like first there were MFDs and then email and then mobile and so on, that they call for an outside-in approach. So you give people, mobile devices and the ability to scan in and tag documents and so on, where you focus on improving the user experience first. But actually, the best successes with large capture operations have been when organizations addressed inside out first. So that is addressing the capture infrastructure and the hidden document automation capabilities first, including bulked up QA and exception handling to address the new channels coming in, like phone in output, often with poor quality at first. Then they focus on the user experience. So it's a bloody lesson that was learned first with MFDs back in 2003. That you should focus on bulking up the inside first, so it can handle the new channels coming in, and you also prepare for spikes and really problematic data and documents coming in because users aren't good at using their phones or their MFDs for capturing stuff. So now some next steps and conclusions. I'd say first, understand what's old versus what's new about digital transformation, and establish best practices to the old and emerging best practices to the new. Much of what I said about how to approach digital transformation and doc automation, namely, whether it's centralized or vertical, how you should approach it, it's like renovating your house and so on, are based on what we all learned before AI became cost-effective in capture. So rely on that wisdom to reduce your risk while you tackle the new risky stuff, like introducing thousands of robots into your processes, many of which will break, and certainly all of which will have to be replaced someday. That's new, and that's what you have to worry about, not some of this good old stuff, which is wisdom that we've learned in the past 25 years. So here's one example that I've been mentioning. Decentralization and democratization of technologies and capture and so on, and digital transformation is old. So we actually know what to do with this, and I just described this a moment ago. But we've seen, when I talked about MFDs and so on, but we've seen it many times in this industry with distributed print, with desktop printers, with distributed capture, with MFDs, with web content management that made it easy for non-technical people to manage their own intranets and websites, with customer communication management, with mobile devices, and with records management, which allowed users to classify their records. And with each of these, and many failures, we learned the following, that when you decentralize, when you democratize, there are two objectives for such decentralization. Everyone that you want to participate should participate. That is, all authorized players should play the game. But secondly, the output should be of adequate quality. And we've learned through bloody experience that you can't excel at both at the same time when you start decentralizing. So you should encourage participation first while correcting the poor quality at first and then ratchet up the quality expectations. And again, from a COE and governance model, I'm just going to hammer this point home again. This means that you should evolve to a federated governance model that leverages both a strong centralized multifunction governance team and decentralized franchises that can perform self-service and do some pretty innovative stuff within limits. Third, transforming capture is one of the more attractive digital transformation opportunities because you can attack it broadly or very narrowly. You can attack it centrally through a shared services capture operation, or vertically, say in a particular business process or business area. You can also do it incrementally or aggressively. You can do a moderate or advanced digital transformation. So note that they are significantly different in the way you should address them. And then you can leverage your existing platforms and, if necessary, selectively insert new capabilities. So you leverage your existing platforms, whether it's IBM DataCap or someone else, and then insert handwriting or other capabilities if necessary. And then finally, this is one of those old wisdoms, use an assess, plan, execute project approach. But what is new is that with digital transformation, and particularly where capture fits, you should do an initial visioning exercise to explain what the options are, the ones that I've just laid out to you, and work folks through kind of a decision tree to figure out where they're going to answer each of those areas. And if you have any questions about that, I can certainly help. And that's it for me. I'm going to turn it back. I'm sorry, I apologize. Here's my contact information. If after this talk you have any other questions, and there's our website on our blog, which has a lot of posts relevant to this particular topic. And now I will turn it over to David.
Wow, thank you, Rich. A comprehensive approach. You've been doing this for decades. I appreciate everything you've said. I want to try to springboard off of a couple of the points you made, especially around decentralization, democratization of capture. And in fact, I'm going to do something extremely dangerous. I'm going to show you some live software of some new capabilities within the IBM Digital Business Automation Platform. And so let's talk about the platform for a second. What IBM did in 2018 is bring together a group of capabilities, best-of-breed capabilities that were within the portfolio of the IBM software group, and create the Digital Business Automation business, which has tasks in it, which is robotic process automation. It has workflow in it. It has decisions in it, which is business rules that can be applied to policies and governance. It has content management in it, and it has capture in it. And I've highlighted capture. And one of the great areas of development has been around, and look at that level below the 5 capabilities, low-code authoring for business and IT. I've seen numbers between 30 and 50% of projects do not achieve the stated goals at the beginning. Many of them are abandoned and don't even get launched, wasting millions of dollars. Why is that? A lot of times business and IT are not necessarily on the same page. They're not working well together. And so IBM spent a lot of time putting together some new tools that business users, IT needs to set it up. IT needs to make sure the governance is right and that the stability and security is right and that all the integrations are there, but that there's a lot of room for the business user to configure and to set it up. And so we have areas in the decision, in the workflow, in the tasks that we can share with you in the future. Today I want to share with you capture. So quickly, OCR. Everybody knows what OCR is, optical character recognition. And here you can actually get it free. You can go online and you can take a document and you can convert it into Word. And that's OCR working in the background. But what if you're a business and you're doing all of the things that Rich just explained, and you have these strategies and you want to either be moderate or advanced? You're going to need production capture. You're going to need capture that has a lot of bells and whistles in it. And in fact, as you can see here, all these documents come in. This production capture system should get your data extracted and your documents ready for downstream processes and downstream repositories. As you can see here, web portals, payment systems, the system of record. If you're going to do some analytics and AI, maybe a data lake, certainly business processes. So that's that's sort of the challenge here. And as Rich knows, and anybody who's been in the business knows a long time, knows that the approach has been traditionally for capture over the years a template approach. There's different names for it. IBM DataCap, talks about fingerprints. Each document has a certain layout to it. But if you can build zones on it and you know what it is as it's coming in, you can go and extract that data. But what happens when you're in a situation where you're getting thousands of different layouts? Now the template thing breaks down, and you need IT to set up these templates. What happens if you're getting multiple formats, many different types of documents? The template system really does expose the weakness of this approach. So there's a new approach that I want to share with you, which is if you look at a document in a different way, many documents have what they call value pairs, where you can see the label and the data. And I just pulled one out here of any old random document. You can see that there's the reason and authority, and then here's the data that was filled in. And so what if we could actually go and extract these pieces without having to build a template? It could be anywhere on the document. If we can find them and bring them in. And that is indeed what a new product just released in December called IBM Business Automation Content Analyzer does. And I'm going to show it to you. Now you can see in the middle, it'll classify, it'll extract data with the value pairs. It can bust out different sections. And as Rich mentioned, the sentiment analysis, that's where you would call in Watson Natural Language Understanding to read the page and look for, emotional content. But when we're done, we're going to have a JSON file, which we can now build into any number of applications downstream, or we can have our documents as PDFs. So here we go. I am now going to share the screen. It takes a few seconds for the screen to share, and I'm doing that process now. This is very, very exciting. I'm going to ask either Rich or Teresa to tell me when you're seeing a PO document that I've just opened on my screen. Can you see it? Anybody?
I'm not seeing it just yet.
Cool.
Let's see here. If someone from the audience wants to help me spot check, if you can just go into, there we go. I'm seeing it now.
Oh, good.
Okay.
It says, lovely. Again, the technology is amazing that connects us and lets us do this. I picked up, I've got a little scenario for you. So say that I run a little bourbon distillery in Kentucky, and I'm concerned that one of my employees in the purchasing department is doing some funny business. And I want to go through all the POs I have, and I want to extract basically the PO number, the person who authorized it, and maybe the vendor, and look and see if I can find something that I can investigate. And so here's one of my POs, and it says purchase order on the top, and it's got the vendor over here and so forth. Okay, that's good to know. So now I'm going to go over to Business Content Analyzer, and you can see here I'm in the ontology view, which is where I'm going to set up those classification and extraction values that I want to get. Now you can see I've already got some in here. I've got invoices and letters, and I've got resumes. So my HR department's been using it. My AP department's been using it. I am not a capture expert. I'm just somebody that wants to do this investigation. So I'm going to add a document class, and I'm going to add purchase order because that's what I want to get. All right, and once I do that, I get 4 different choices here. I need to classify it. Remember, Rich just talked about classification, so I'm going to look for some words. And we noticed that it said purchase order on the top, and they want me to put in individual words, so I'm going to put in purchase and order and save those. Now, it also had the title, so I'm going to go ahead and do that as well. I'm going to add a document title, which was purchase order. Okay, that's pretty easy. I'm not doing any coding here. Now, heading is for maybe unstructured documents, and maybe there's a title across the top. In this case, what I want to do now is add those values that I want to capture. So the first thing I want to get is, the vendor. Now, the vendor is mostly alphabetical because it's a name, and it's something I want mandatory. Sensitive is if it were information that I might not want everyone to see. Maybe it's a Social Security number or something. But in this case, okay, the vendor. Now, ahead of time, I want to add an alias here. The vendor was under a label that said sent to. So I'm going to look for sent to, and that'll help me find the vendor. Now, let me go back and add the other key I want is the authorizer. Who is authorizing these purchases? Okay? And that's also mostly alphabetic, and I want that to be mandatory. And the authorizer keyword alias here was requisitioned by. Now, I can go in and add plenty of these, many of these, if I have many different types of documents coming in. But in this case, as we saw, I just have one. Now, I'm also, let's grab the date. All right, the date's going to be mostly numeric. Doesn't have to be mandatory. And let's also add the PO number. Okay? Cool. Look at me go. And the PO number is also numeric. And we're going to make that mandatory as well. Okay, cool. Now, the PO number had an alias, and I could put in many of them. I'm just doing a quick one now because this one was purchased. I'm sorry, it was requisitioned by, wasn't it? No, PO number was purchase order NO dot. Cool. Now let's upload my document and see how I'm doing. So I'm going to go over to the training view. I'm going to upload a document. Here's my PO, one of them. Okay. Now this is all happening in the cloud. I am running on a server that is in the engineering department right now. Hopefully other people aren't using it. It can run as fast as I need to, depending on how much power we can throw at it. But it should take just a little bit here, and we'll see what we get. Now we're going to see the key value pair view. Look at that. It says it's in good order already. So here I'm going to open it up and take a look. What do we got? I've got the purchase order here. We've classified it properly. The vendor is here. Look at that. Sent to Biltmore Springs. The PO number is here. Got it. The authorizer, Ted Bates, is here. And the PO number, PO number is actually the date. So here's where I go and I fix it. Because that's not the PO number. That's the date. And I click on Learn. All right. And I know we should be wrapping it up real soon. I will resubmit it, though, and let's just see if it learned. And then that'll be the end of this demo. And you can see, though, that I did not do any programming. Underneath is machine learning. There's a number of patents that IBM has developed to make these things happen. Finishing up. Isn't that nice? And let's just open it up. And we'll see, look at that. The date is proper. The PO number is the right number. The bill. So I can keep on going. I can get all the data on this, as you can see, if I spend a little bit more time. But now we will go back. I'm going to click on stop the screen share, and this is where you are supposed to now minimize that little box that popped up on the lower left so that we can go back to the slide. And what you do is you click on the box on the upper right of that left box, if that's clear, and it'll minimize. And that means we can go, and I'll very quickly tell you that we had our big annual conference called Think 2019 just 2 weeks ago, and a Canadian bank came and explained how they've used this technology because they've started a new business where they are paying bills for customers. And now you've got to imagine there are tons of different invoices coming in, and they have no control over those invoices. And so for them, this approach allowed that department to easily set up and extract this data and put it into a payment system. And to learn more about it, we have a link here, and I know that link is in the resources area as well. And you can see a much longer demo, and you can learn a little bit more about how to use Content Analyzer. So there's my time, and thank you very much. Back to you, Teresa.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much there. And I'm already taking a look at the questions that are coming in here. So do please keep those questions rolling in. We've been listening to David Jenness of IBM with that very cool demo of just, for me, it's helpful just to have the context of seeing it in action. And before that, we were listening to Richard Medina. And David, let me ask a couple of the questions that have come in are specific to what we're seeing in your demo. And so let me just ask those right out of the gate here. Someone is asking if the Content Analyzer is an add-on to if they already have the DBA offering and have that installed at their company. How does that operate?
Well, Content Analyzer is an API web service, so developers would use it, and they could attach it to a repository and run searches in their content management repository. They could add it to their existing capture application at this time, or they could use it to build, special applications such as, I've heard a number of interesting use cases, but such as the Canadian Bank using it's a very targeted capability. As you saw, it classifies and it extracts value pairs. So it has some pretty interesting and specific use cases, but we're pretty excited by how the early reception has been.
And so with that being an API, it's doesn't matter if the content analyzer is installed on-prem or not.
Well, it is a cloud service right now, and so that's how it works.
Okay.
Basically, I sent the documents off to the cloud service, which did the processing and sent it back.
Okay. You started your demo with the example you took with the purchase order, and someone was asking how would that work with a handwritten document?
Well, Content Analyzer is not yet set up for handwriting. Handwriting OCR is a very specific kind of OCR, as Rich talked about. It's an add-on even to our DataCap product, where we work with a third party that is, the one for the U.S. Postal Service. So it's certainly good, but Content Analyzer has not yet been enabled for handwriting. Let's watch how this thing evolves, though, over time, and maybe in the near future it will be.
I'm looking forward to that. We do have a question here, Rich, that came in when you were talking, and I always enjoy listening to you speak because there is so much that I learn with everything that you share. And this question is focusing in on, how would you develop an ROI for document automation? Can you just offer some tips and strategies for that?
Absolutely. So you look at the labor costs. If you can define, there's an easier and a harder way. The easier way is to look within that capture operation at the labor costs for document preparation, classifying and indexing, the hand keying and so on, and then the QAing and validation and exception handling and so on. And if you introduce document automation, you can significantly reduce how much sorting and binding and how much messing around with the documents you have to do, if you can identify the documents and extract data from them, and then how much hand keying you have to do, and then how much QAing you have to do. That's the first thing. The hard one, then you can also look at, and this gets a little harder, is if you could do some of the validation for completeness and correctness. What you can do, and particularly for packages, but that's not necessary, you can reduce some of the tasks that are done typically downstream by the more expensive line of business people. So you bring that stuff upstream into the capture process, and instead of downstream, and so you're using cheaper labor, and there's less damage that gets done. The farther along a mistake goes downstream, the more damage it does. And then the hardest to quantify is within the various business units. If you can calculate, like in their terms, the cycle time to close a deal, a mortgage, a loan, or whatever, or a better customer experience if the customer isn't discovering the mistakes instead of the capture center and so on. That's harder to quantify, but the labor costs are the easiest ones to quantify.
Thank you very much for that feedback in there. Just wanted to mention to everyone that AIM 19 is coming up. I can't believe it's just a smidge over 2 weeks away. And I know I'm going to be there. Most of us from AIM are going to be there, and I look forward to seeing you there. There's an overflowing agenda that has been filling up, dozens of speakers, roundtable sessions, brain dates, and that's one-on-one collaboration with your peers. And there's just so much more that's planned for the week's activities. There are a few spots remaining, and so don't get left out. So for more information, go to aimconference.com, and encourage you to book that one of those few remaining spots that we have left, and I look forward to seeing you out there. And we are at the end of our webinar time today, and just a last few reminders that we did record the webinar, and so you're welcome to come back, and we'll be sending everyone an email to let you know for the link for that replay, because there's so much good information that's shared and worth listening to again. Please download the resources. There's some really cool information in there. Do take the feedback survey. I greatly value hearing that feedback from you. Very much want to thank our underwriter, IBM. Without the support from our solution providers, AIM wouldn't be able to bring you our free educational programs like our webinar series. So thank you, IBM, for your sponsorship. And just as we're bringing things to a close, I just want to ask each of our speakers to give us a closing thought or a key takeaway. And I'm going to start first with David Jenness of IBM. Your closing thoughts today.
Well, thank you, Teresa. And our title was Removing the Bottlenecks. And I hope what I was able to demonstrate in the short time there was that somebody who with absolutely no programming experience, myself included, was able to do some pretty complicated setup and configure of a capture system to extract the data that I'm looking for. So hopefully I was able to kind of share that is certainly one way to remove the bottlenecks. And there's several more that we want to share as the year unfolds, and we do more AIM webcasts where we can show this democratization, these low-code authoring tools, how business and IT can collaborate better together. And the last thing I'll say is if you go to the AIM conference, please come by and see us at the IBM booth 30, and I'll be there, and I look forward to saying hello.
Thanks, David. And Richard Medina of DocuLabs, your closing thoughts today.
Yeah, so I'm not going to restate some of the things. I'm going to say actually something new that I didn't mention before, and that is one of the strategies that we found to be extremely effective as you folks think about capture and digital transformation is to separate your opportunities, what you do with capture, into competitively differentiating opportunities versus utilities. Competitively differentiating opportunities, one that is high volume, high value, really hits the customer, is very important to you, and that's where you can do a lot of the new fancy stuff and really work with IT to do exciting stuff. The utilities are the stuff, our garden variety, scanning, where it's really easy stuff. It's electronic file room. It's converting, taking stuff off of CDs, stuff like that, and so on. And those things might be, you try to do those as efficiently and cheaply and offload those if possible. So to consider breaking your stuff into those two buckets and then treating them differently. One other caution I would warn you with is that what's a utility today is not going to, what's a utility tomorrow is going to be different from what's a utility today. So garden variety, capture, and transformation still will play a role, but what will be a utility tomorrow will be stuff, born digital, stays digital, simple services like that. Just like no one uses landlines for normal communication anymore. It's all mobile phones and so on. So landlines are a devalued utility for most, folks. Anyway, that's what I would say. So take that strategic approach to your capture opportunities and build your strategy that way. Let me know if you have any more questions about that. Yep.
Oh, certainly, and always feel free to reach out directly to our speakers because we do share their contact information for a reason. But thank you, everyone, so much for your time today. Thank you to our speakers and to our sponsor, IBM. For AIM, this is Teresa Resick, and we'll see you within our next webcast, and I'll see you at AIM 19.